Alright, let's go ahead and get started. What up, my peeps? You got Sarge coming at you. So, I was talking to one of my viewers the other day. He goes by Brad. I'm just gonna call him Brad. I can't remember the rest of his handle, but uh, Brad, this video is for you and anyone else that's interested in tossing the chopper. And let me just go ahead and give a big shout out to my man Cashier Cage, who I learned the chopper from. And again, anything that I do here, I always give props to Cage, because again, he broke this down to me, and it took quite a while for me to get familiar with the intricacies of the chopper. And I guess now you could say I consider myself a fairly decent understudy. So, but I wasn't a quick study. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, I'm gonna call this video. I'm gonna title it "Chopper Tossing 101: Back to the Basics." All right, we're going back to the basics. All right, I'm gonna take you from H to T, head to toe, and reiterate on some points in there because I told Brad that I would give him a couple of tips, and I'm gonna try to do that. So again, of course, I'm gonna start off with the stance. Let's go ahead and get started. Just the basic stance that I use. Okay. So what I'm gonna tell you is, and I got all my cameras running. Hopefully, I'm getting a good view. It's like when you step up to the table. Okay, you step up to the chip rail. Left leg forward, right leg back. I'm a lefty, so that's the stance that I use. So, and I'm shooting from stick right two. I normally shoot from stick right two, okay, which is 9 feet 6 inches from the back wall. I can tell you, I done broke down my tape measure, measured it a million times, and I pretty much have that locked in. So it's stick right two, right at 9 feet 6 inches, okay. So walk up to the table, I step into it with my left leg forward and right leg just kind of trailing. I don't know how well that shows up, okay. And then I take both hands, okay, and pull myself up to the chip rail, okay, kind of brace my body up to the chip rail, okay. So I call it getting locked in. You want to get locked into the chip rail so that your hips are locked up against the table, okay. You don't want to be off back and turning sideways and all that, okay. You want good. You got to have good posture, okay. And the best way that helps me get there is keeping my left leg locked into the table with my right leg kind of stepping in a stepping motion, and I pull my body forward using both hands to lock into the chip rail. Now I'm locked in, okay? And okay, now I'm gonna move this camera here around. Hopefully I can get my views back. I was gonna use a separate camera for that, but I decided let's give this a shot. Now let's see if I can get all the cams lined back up real quick. Okay, that should be about right. Okay. So we got the basic stance down that I use anyhow. And if you're shooting from stick left, whether it's one or two, I would just reverse the process and say right leg forward, left leg back. But the main thing is you want to brace yourself up to the chip rail, okay, to the table, okay. Step into it so that your hips are squared, your body's squared to the table. All right. So I do my dice. All right. Next, I'm gonna go into the grip. Okay, I'm gonna go into the grip. Okay, and I'm gonna try to show the grip as closely as I can. Should I use the other cam? No. Let's just keep going. Okay, so the dealer is gonna push the dice out to you. The dice come down the table. You pick them up. First thing I do is when the dice come up, I put them in my pickup zone where I plan to be picking up the dice at. Now, where do I plan to pick the dice up? First thing first, when you walk up to the table, you find your shooting position, whether it's stick right 1, 2, stick left 1, 2, 3, whatever. Okay. Once I get to that, my shooting position, stick right 2. the first thing I do before the dice even gets there is I do this little thing with my fingers. I know when I take my fingers and I stretch them out as far as they can go, that's 9 inches, okay? I don't know how well that shows up on camera. If you're looking at this on YouTube, you should be able to click in the box and look and zoom in on my fingers and see what I'm doing here, because right now it doesn't look like I'm showing up. But I can tell you, when my fingers are stretched out, that's 9 inches from the chip rail or from the sidewall to my pickup zone where I plan to be picking up the dice at. Okay, so and which for me just happens to be right in the center of the M. Okay, so that's the first thing I do when I walk up to the table. Okay, the second thing I do before the dice even get there is after I do this with my fingers and measure out where I want my pickup zone to be at, because again, it's critical that your dice are in the correct position when you're gripping them, because if you have them too close in, your grip is not gonna feel correct. Okay, it's either gonna be something's gonna be off. Okay, and I've learned that through trial and error. And or if you have it too far out, okay, when you picking the dice up, again, something's just not gonna feel right to you. Okay, so we have the pickup zone. Okay, once I find the pickup zone where I'm going to put the dice at, I take my fingers, walk them up to that spot, then I go to the launch zone. I spread my fingers out. My launch zone is 10 inches forward of that. I know with my fingers spread out all the way, that's 9 inches there, and I need about another inch on that, which incidentally for me is going to be right here in this white line. I can tell you this is 10 inches right here in this white line here. So from here to here, with my fingers stretched out, come over, I find that 10 inches. Now, from the next thing, okay, I'm just giving you some matrix to go by, okay? You find your own matrix, but you can probably use some of this info as a starting point. Now, the launch zone, okay, is going to be anywhere from this 10-inch mark here to 3 inches above. Okay, this right here, from here to here, is my sweet spot in launching the dice. Okay, and you'll see why in a minute here. And I can tell you, if I measured that out from the side wall, okay, from the chip rail all the way out to up top here, it's 13 inches. Okay, 13 inches. You don't want your hand too far forward. You don't want it too far back, or else the toss is gonna feel awkward. Okay, this chopper this chopper toss can be very problematic. You guys heard Cashier Cage talked about that over and over. It can be a headache, and I'm just trying to give you some matrix to go by that maybe can alleviate some of the headaches that, you know, the heartaches that I went through in trying to get it down. So again, real quickly, walk up the table, stick right 2, step up, get locked in, brace my body up, get locked in. Oh, and something else too, once I'm bracing my body, this right hand here keeps the pressure. I keep pressure with my right hand, okay, since I'm using my left hand to manipulate the dice, so that I don't lose that squared up position, okay, my posture against the table. Okay, I keep this right hand here so I stay locked into the table. Okay, alright, we got the dice in our pickup zone. We already know where our launch zone is, which is going to be 10 inches over and another 3 inches up. Okay, anywhere in between here. Incidentally, I got a little cheetah mark here on my table, but you know, this works on any table. I just came from Shreveport. I was going to do a trip report, but that's a whole nother story. Did fairly decent down there, but don't want to, let's not get off into a whole nother tangent there, another subject. But Shreveport was fun shooting down there with the guys. All right, let's stay focused. So once we pick the dice up in the launch zone, okay, I'm just gonna grab them right now and move them over from the pickup zone over to the launch zone, which again, like I said, but normally what you'll see me do is I'm gonna bring the dice over, I'm gonna put them down in my launch zone, which actually, if I measure from the sidewall up right now, that's about 12 inches. So from where I initially picked the dice up at to where I moved them at over here, the dice are at an angle to me, that's 12 inches from the sidewall, and as much as 13 inches, or you know, as little as 11 inches, like I said, anywhere up in between here, okay, and hopefully this is showing up okay on the cameras. You know, you can zoom in if you need to. I'm thinking if I should have used a second camera. Could I bring that camera down? Should I bring that camera down? Maybe I should just, yeah, disconnect that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. Might be a little Blair Witchy, but okay. So now, wind. Okay. Let's get into the grip. Okay, I already showed you where the pickup zone is at. I showed you where I'm going to be launching the dice from, okay, which is about 12 inches from the sidewall and 10 inches forward of the pickup zone, okay. Now I'm going to get into the grip itself. Let's see. I'm going to need to show this close up. Really want you to see what's going on with the grip. So I'm going to take this camera, bring it down. I wish I could clip it on here somehow to show, but I'm just going to try to, let's see if I can keep my hand steady enough and not too much wobbling. Alright, so when you're gripping the dice, what I do is I come in over the top. I take the top dice and kind of push it down onto the bottom dice. I'm sliding my finger down the dice, okay, and just as they get to the seam, introduce that middle finger, okay, and slide it down to the base, and then slide everything down to lock the dice in. However, what I'm going to point out here to you is what I've noticed is what tends to work real well with the grip is when I slide my finger down the front face of the dice with the index finger, my pointer finger, is that the dice are kind of like towards the rear, okay, what I want to say, the rear, towards the inside, okay, the inner portion of my index finger, as opposed to being in the center or even forward, okay. It just naturally ends up that way. And then it's the reverse with the thumb, okay. The thumb ends up actually being more towards this side of the thumb actually ends up being more towards the forward portion, okay, forward pad of the thumb, as opposed to the rear of the thumb. I don't know how well that shows up, but I'm going to grip it and show you exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, I come in over the top. Let's see if we can show that. I'm going to try to anyhow. Coming over the top. Okay, and when I come in, my hands are just my fingers at a slight angle. I start sliding my hand down, introduce the middle finger, and let's see. And then this is what we have. Okay, the dice, okay, are more, if you look at the thumb side, the dice are more towards the forward edge. Let's see, the forward edge of my thumb. And then with the index finger, okay, the pointer finger, the dice are more towards the inside of my index finger, okay. And it gives it a nice pocket feel. Okay, you're gonna feel a pocket. And then of course we have the pointer finger, okay, the middle finger sitting at the rear. Okay, alright, so it's kind of hard to show this without doing too much jiggling. I'm gonna do it again, try to get as close up as I can on it. Okay, introduce the middle finger, come in, pick it up, and I'll show you what it looks like from the bottom. Okay, from the sides. And the dice just naturally end up being that way. And there's a reason for that, because this is going to allow you to apply that spin, because your fingers need to be, the grip needs to be positioned correctly. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure you know, some will be able to come straight over the top and bring their fingers straight down. Some will be able to come right over the top and bring their fingers straight down, but I'm just telling you what works for me is, and let's put this camera back down. Doing a little too much Blair Witchy stuff. Okay, let's get this back up there. Are we back in place? Yeah. Okay, so that's as close up on the grip as I can get and show you that. I'm gonna do it one more time. Okay, I'm gonna come in over the top, and when I come in my hand, my fingers come, I just naturally come in like at a slight angle and start sliding my fingers down. Introduce that thumb, not the thumb, but the middle finger, slide it down to the base, and squeeze the dice along the cutting edge. Okay, and let's see, it should look like this. Okay, here's what it looks like. Look at the bottom. Okay, that's the grip right there. Okay, that's the grip. And like I was trying to show, on the inside of the dice, the cutting edge appears to be more towards the inner portion. Okay, I have something I can point with. Probably, yeah, kind of screwdriver. The dice appear to be more towards the inner portion, the rear portion, okay, of my index finger, and on the thumb on the front side, okay, it appears to be more towards the front side of the thumb as opposed to being towards the rear or the middle, because I want you to see back there, this is all the thumb space that's there. Okay. And what that's going to allow me to do is apply the proper spin that I'm looking for. Okay. All right, so okay, let's go ahead and take it from the top, walk up, lock in, get squared up. Something else too, should have mentioned this before. Once they get squared up, you lean over. I lean over, and the left side of my head is practically aligned with the left side of the dice. Okay, so I'm a little bit off center. I'm not right over the dice looking down on them. I'm a little bit off center, just a little. Okay, so everything's happening to the left side of my body. If you're a righty, I would say it'd be on the right side of your body. Okay, lean over. Okay, when I lean over, I'm looking right down on the dice, even though they're off to the left just a little. I come in at that angle. And you know, that's one thing, the beauty about YouTube, you can take and use the zoom on YouTube. Hopefully it helps you see this a little better. Okay, start pushing down, introduce that middle finger, and the middle finger is for stabilization of the stack. Okay, and you push everything down until they reach the felt. Okay, when they reach the felt, the grip should look like this. Okay, once you got the stack in your hand, okay, along the cutting edge, move them to the launch zone. Okay, now here's the thing about the launch zone. When I move my hand to the launch zone, the dice are naturally, look at that, I just set the dice down. Okay, and the dice are naturally squared. They're squared towards the side wall, and they're squared towards the back wall. Okay, and Incidentally, again, I keep going back, I forgot to mention this, when you place the dice in the pickup zone, make sure you're using, as Cashier Cage says, the diamond grip. Okay, you want to place the dice down so that they're looking like a diamond, diagonally up and down. Both points are one point to you, the other point away from you. Okay, that's something that just came. You know, I do natural now. Before I used to pick them up with the dice, you know, squared. But like I said, once you pick them up in the diamond formation, okay, using the diamond grip, once you move your hand around to the launch zone, the dice are naturally going to be squared up to the table. And I'll stop here and put them down again so you can see that the dice are squared up to the table. Okay, they're squared to the back wall, they're squared to the side wall. Okay, now let's run it forward a little bit more. Okay, alright, I'm going to talk through this part here before I actually do it. So pick the dice up, move them around, move them from the pickup zone to the launch zone. Here's something that's critical if you don't take away anything else from this video. Once you move the dice to the launch zone, lock your elbow, lock out your hand, and I'm going to tell you the reason for that here in a second. Okay, and how do I lock out my hand? And that camera down there is probably going to show it. You're going to see my hand, my wrist probably tense up. What I do is I hold them about 2 inches up, then I push, literally push my hand down to within a ½ inch. Sometimes I just touch the tip of my thumb down to the felt and bring them back up, because I actually toss the chopper off the deck as opposed to from the deck. Okay, so I push my hand down to lock out my elbow. When you toss the chopper, you want your hand to stay locked. And I'll give you a little story about that. My old buddy Dave over there at Same Bet was teaching me how to toss par GTC toss, and he sent me a video, great video, still have it in my learning library, and it was a nice slow-mo video, and he kept on saying that the one thing that you don't want to do when you're tossing par GTC is break your wrists. Okay, and I see what he was talking about. That was with par GTC. However, I found out something similar also applies to the chopper. When you're tossing the chopper, don't break your wrists, and by that I mean don't arch your wrist, don't bend your wrist during the release. Okay, if you go back and look at any of Cashier Cage video and some of mine, what you will naturally see is when the dice are being released, that our hands is pretty straight out. Okay, so that's I think that's a game changer. Okay, if you're tossing the chopper and you do that little tidbit there, lock your elbow, lock your hand out, okay, and don't break your wrists. When I said don't break your wrists, pick the dice up, bring them around to your launch zone. For me to lock out, what you'll see me do, and the guys will see me do this at the casino, I'll push the dice down to where I want them in the launch zone, okay, and right now my elbow, everything, my hand is totally locked out. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and release this with hyper spin. Okay, not the best toss, but okay. And Brad, one of the questions that Brad asked me was, should he use he believes the problem might be in the height of his release, high release, low release. I would say experiment with that, but normally the release should be about not higher than the back wall. Okay, you can experiment, because sometimes I use a high release. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna run through the toss one more time. Also, grip pressure. When you come in over the top and you grip the dice, I kind of find myself going back because I leave out little tidbits. Okay, once you grip the dice, and you pick them up, you have them along the cutting edge. I can squeeze right now on the cutting edge. I'm squeezing as tight as I can. I can't squeeze the dice anymore. I have them tight, and I know I have them firm. I got a good grip. When I move them around to the launch zone, okay, I just relax my hand. I relax the grip, because I can feel that the dice, I can feel the cutting edge, so I relax the grip, okay? All right, and to launch the dice, all I do is I kind of crouch down a little, and as I crouch down, my hand go up, okay? And by doing that, it naturally, by crouching down a little, as I crouch down, my hand go up and out into the release. And it just causes the dice to naturally leave off release with spin. I add that spin, and you're not spinning the dice. You're not. Don't flick your thumb. Just release the dice with a nice, a nice moderate spin. Don't try to, twist them and no. Okay, so just come in, I'm braced up, locked in. When I lean over the table, this right hand here is pushing my body into the chip rail. Okay, my head is over the dice, a little off center to the right. Okay, got them on the cutting edge, move them around to the launch zone. Okay, lock my elbow out. Okay, and then I'm going to crouch down and go out into the release. Right? Now, something else I picked up along the way from my good buddy Mudslide Mac. Here's something that can help you during your practice session. I actually do it at the casino sometime. Mudslide talk about finding a focal point and using that, okay? And the shit actually works, believe it or not. What I've come to find out is to get the dice to fly straight to where I want them to release, if I take and I look above here, okay, I want the dice to go straight here. If I just focus on the back wall, okay, above where I want, I don't, focus, I actually focus high above the back wall. Okay, up top here somewhere. The dice, it causes my hand to want to go to that location, and the release, when I release, the dice just naturally go to where I'm looking at. Okay, I don't look at the table. I'm sure another question that's going to come up is, what landing zone do you use? Something that go back harping on what Cashier Cage has always said. With the chopper, there really isn't a landing zone. There's a landing area, and what I've come to see, the more and more I've tossed this toss and become very intricate, familiar with it, is the landing zone for me is anywhere from about this M, okay, to out here on this red 7. This is like my landing area, anywhere in there, okay, which is, I'm going to say, probably 24 to 36 inches from the back wall. That's the landing area. Not a landing zone, not a landing spot, landing area, okay? And so, again, like Mudslide says, find that focal point above where you want the dice to go. Okay, get locked in. Lock that elbow. Keep it locked. Okay, keep it locked. Dice on. Okay, it's almost, when you bring your hand up, during the release, just all we're doing is bringing your hand straight up into the release. I crouch down, okay, I crouch down a little, and as I crouch down, it just causes my hand to go up and out, and the dice go out. That wasn't a good toss. That was not a good toss. So, let's see. Let's, yeah, let's toss a couple. Let's toss a couple, and there's one more thing I'm going to add. And I'm just using a 5-4-5-4 set here. Okay. Stance, locked in, and over. Good grip. Launch zone. Dice squared up. Dice zone. Okay. 6-1. And right now what's coming up on the dice are irrelevant. But it's just habit. Habit, habit, habit. Okay. So as far as the landing zone go, okay, we're gonna focus on the back wall. Okay. Focus on that focal point down there. Above where you want the dice to go. Lock out that hand. Excellent. Okay. Just gonna throw a couple. And then add one final thing. Okay. So here's how you can tell if your hand's locked out, or to ensure your hand's locked out. Okay, and I do this at the casino. Okay, when I pick the dice up, I bring them around. My hand's about 2 inches up, then I take and I push. I literally push my hand down to where I want them at. Okay, to within about a ½ inch of the table. Okay, then I can feel that tension on my hand and keep it right there. Okay. Dice down. Okay. And again, we need to control the rollout. You know, that's one thing about the chopper. The chopper is predicated on flat landings. Right now I can tell you my dice are not landing flat. These are not some of my best toss, but you know, flat landings, tightly cropped, no dice scatter. Dice on. Okay, 3-4. And what I'll advise anybody to do is, after you get you're into your practice session, you're feeling good about your toss, film it in slow motion and see, especially using the 5-4-5-4 set. I can tell you one of the quirks that I have is my top dice naturally spins faster than my bottom dice, about one die face faster than the bottom die. Okay, so I would tell you, find it, because once you figure out what little quirk you may have, for all you know, your dice might actually stay in sync. That's a good thing. But I can tell you, anytime I'm throwing a 3V, hard way, or even a kissing set, I keep them offset. If I'm going to throw a 3V, let's say I'm throwing a 2-3-6-3, first thing I do is I'll take and I'm going to quarter turn the top die away from me. Okay? Same thing with the hard way set. 5-4-5-4. First thing I'm going to do is turn it, quarter turn the top die away from me. Why? Because after studying my toss, reviewing it in slow motion, I can tell you 3/4 of the time my top dice is going to come into sync, long as I have that quarter turn on the top die. Okay? And it works, again, it can be applied to all sets. Okay? And then sometimes, if I'm going to do something, it's always going to be with the top die. Either I'm going to turn the top die ahead a quarter turn or back a quarter turn. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you is how I'm going to call it supercharge. I'm going to call it supercharge the chopper, okay, to get a little bit more spin on it. And why would you want to do that? You know, sometimes you might throw the chopper and it didn't quite make it to the back wall. One or two dies didn't make it to the back wall. And then the pit boss started giving you, hey, you know, back wall, sir. And your tendency is to then change something in your mechanics and, you know, throw the dice, release the dice harder to the back wall. In that case, what I've started doing, if the dice don't make it to the back wall, when I grip the dice and bring them around to the launch zone, I supercharge the chopper. And I'm gonna bring this camera down just a little to show. Well, let's see. Well, I'm gonna talk it through, then I'll bring the camera down. So, when I move the dice around to the launch zone, that 12-inch mark right about there, okay, anywhere from 12 to 11 inches from the sidewall, the dice is squared to the table. But sometimes, when I want to get a little extra spin to ensure the dice are going to make it to the back wall, because, you know, when the dice land at that 24 to 36-inch mark, they got to skip, trickle, hop, and make their way up to the back wall. And that's all going to be done through spin, okay? So, what I do is, as I'm holding the dice in my hand, instead of having them squared up to the table, to the back wall, what I'll do is I'll roll my finger back just a little so that the dice go from being squared to actually now being diamond. Okay? They're being diamond. And I do that just by simply rolling the dice back. Okay, rolling the dice back in my finger. And let me see if I can show that on cam. I'll bring the camera down here. This is the last thing I'm going to do. I'm trying not to get too long-winded on this. I'm already long-winded. Okay, so we're going to pick them up in the pickup zone here. Move them around to the launch zone. Okay, right here. The dice are squared up in the launch zone. Okay, now to supercharge them, to add more spin, what I'm going to do is just slightly take and roll the dice back. I'm not sure how well that shows up on cam. I'm going from square to just moving the dice back just a little to where they're more diagonal. I'm going to put them down here so you can see what they look like. Okay, they're going from initially squared in my hand to be more diagonal, and what that's going to allow me to do is add more spin to the dice and cause them to hop, skip, trickle, and bounce their way up to the back wall. Okay, let's see, back in, yes. Okay, so all right, I'm gonna try something. I was gonna edit in something to the end of this video, but I'm not. Just gonna try to catch a front and back, couple front and back toss, but I'm just gonna just throw the next 10 toss. Okay, using a 5-4-5-4 set, and let's see if we can demonstrate a couple of toss here, putting it all together. Face off. Okay, got a little wide on that one. 639. Throwing a 5-4-5-4 set. Face off. 2-4-6. Again, dice going a little wide, but that's okay. Again, through practice, you'll learn to your dice, you learn to keep your dice closely cropped. The main thing is minimizing that rollout, okay? Dice 426. Chopper is predicated in bounce minimization, flat landings, tightly cropped. Okay, so 549 front line. You know, a little roll off the back wall is okay. What we don't want is for the dice to be halfway back down the table, one dice here and one dice up here. You know, that is no, that's not good. That's not good chopping there. Even at the casino, I know we get paid on the top numbers. However, I'll get a case of the ass with myself if I see my dice scattering, regardless of what the numbers are, because I know that's going to lead to bad things. If the dice are doing, you know, coming out in that controlled manner that I want, dice on 538. If the dice are coming out in that controlled manner, staying tightly cropped, no dice scatter, I'm hitting primary numbers, or if I'm using a hardware set, one dice is going off axis like I expect. That's what I'm looking for. Alright, locked in. Face off. 235. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna throw 4 more tosses. And by me doing this, you should be able to. Anyone should be able to figure out exactly what's taking place from the stance, getting locked into the chip rail, the grip, the release, okay? Locking out that elbow. That's that. 314. A little scatter on there, but okay. I think after this, I'm gonna try to do a front and back video of the toss. Maybe slow it down. Thanks, son. 10. Okay, that was bad. Okay, the dice kind of plumped down and okay. But guess what? That's a primary hit. Sometime even when you're doing, when your toss is on and you're doing bad shit, you're I ain't gonna say my mechanics are off, but the dice on exactly landing how I want to, still end up with decent results. Okay. Face off. 2 and 3. So again, notice you see me crouch down. Just as I crouch down, the dice go out at the same time. The release, let's go back to the release. Uh, what I found out if you use a low release, okay, and your release is too low, what's gonna happen is the dice are gonna dig in. They're not gonna get to the back wall, and it's Big Red is gonna come knocking very quick. That's one thing about the chopper. It's like feast or famine. Either if you toss them right, you'll be rewarded. If you toss them incorrect, no. That Big Red will come knocking in a heartbeat. And you know what? The more I do this here, I'm gonna put the dice down here, okay? Just as my hand is. And the dice are square to the back wall, but a little bit beyond square. Because the more I push my hand out, okay, to keep them locked, the tip of the dice is more towards the, like at a 45-degree angle. Instead of being perfectly squared, it ends up being just a little bit further, okay, at an angle, 45-degree angle slightly, okay. Square can work, but I'm just telling you what's happening right now, okay, as I push my hand down, okay. Face down. 358, front line, okay. So, alright, I'm gonna stop here. Hopefully that bit of info helps. You know, Brad asked a question, and I just wanted to put this video out there for him, and anyone else that's interested in learning the chopper. Again, this is like I said, I'm gonna call this tossing the chopper 101. Okay, tossing the chopper 101 from basic to not to advanced, from basic to some shit I said, but it'll come to me. Let's see. Say anything else? No, I think we hit all the high points, and that should do it. I think I'll see if I can put together a slow-mo video showing some of these tosses. I already put out a slow-mo video, but this time I'm gonna try to capture the front and back and show you guys exactly what's going on. So we'll give that a shot. All right, I'm gonna stop here, shut it down. Anyone have a question? Feel free to you know, shoot me a message on the channel and let me know. And for more advanced implementation of the chopper, what I'll advise anyone to do is check out Cashier Cage channel, because Cage is the sensei, the master of the chopper. Okay, and if you watch his channel, he will show you. He has a lot of advanced thinking, a lot of advanced tool, and some great information on his channel. So I would highly advise anyone to check it out. What I'm trying to do is give you the basic. Hell, I think everybody should toss the chopper, but it's a great toss. Okay. All right. So let's shut it down here, yo. This has been a Saj getting it in. Stay safe, my peeps. Saj out. Okay, and out.